Hey, Coach. Good evening.
Nice to see you again. So this is grand. This is grand, and I'm really excited to have you in one half of the screen. So, which part of the world have you joined this conversation from? Where are you right now?
There's a place called South Bangalore,
Oh,
which
okay.
is the other side of the world that you live in. So
It's very close to Kanyakumari. I live very close to Hyderabad, so it's 11
right.
o'clock. So you stand there. Okay. All right, Vinod, thank you very much. Have a nice, wonderful evening to start with. To all our Ultramalaivasi runners, OOTYULTRA runners, they like endurance, but they don't like long conversations. Okay, so let's keep short and sweet stories. Now, before we begin, a quick word of little bit about Vinod. We have, by the way, suddenly struck some kind of lightning struck in both our heads, and we found something really in common. And I'm extremely happy about this. Last few weeks has been extremely engaging. So we're doing something exciting. I'm benefiting from this, from the magic of your newly found love. I'm not sure if it's a newly found love. So you are the founder of Dustypaths, and storytelling is your profession. Why don't we start with you telling us a short story of how did it all begin? Tell us a little bit about who Vinod is, so that the rest of the world knows who you are.
Yes, absolutely. Firstly, thank you very much for having me in the bottom half of this session. Yeah, I'm happy to be here. So, way back in the 90s was, I'm hearing an echo, I'm sorry.
Let me try to move my phone. How about now? Is it still here?
No, this is good. This is good now. Yes.
Right. How about now?
Right. Yeah, I think it is good. It's good. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. All right. So way back in the 90s was I used to run an advertising and marketing agency. So I jumped into advertising without a background in advertising, and it was wonderful to just walk into one of the I used to look at this ads in the newspaper and felt something could be done better. The copy could have been better, the story could have been better. I didn't never use the word story at that point, but I felt it could have been done better for the kind of money they were paying. So I walked into their office and I challenged them and said, I can do a better ad. And I did not know it was the marketing manager of that organization. He said, I designed this ad, I wrote the copy. So I did not know that I was challenging him. I used to think that there's somebody who's probably some agency has done it. And I think that's where it started, So he challenged me and I came out with two options for him. He loved both, and we released both the ads in the newspaper at that point in time. And he stuck with us, and I still remember they used to sell, plots in Whitefield at that time for 25 rupees per square foot. And he told me, do you want to buy? I said, Whitefield, who's going to go there? So, and when you look at it now, that's a different story altogether. So that's where it started. And, the beauty of this whole thing came together, or I would say the aha moment was basically when I was in Florida, Disneyland. And I was there for a Six Sigma conference. We were part of a Six Sigma team. We had worked on a project, and there were presentations through the week. And as part of this, there was a behind the scenes tour of how Disneyland works. That was eye-opening. The way they run their organization, the way people operate, the way the whole thing comes together as an experience for guests who come there is absolutely mind-blowing. I think that was the turning point for me, where I picked up a lot of learning and came back to whatever I was doing at the workplace. I looked for opportunities to sort of use this, all the learning, all the insights that I gained there in various places, right from the time I would hire people, to train people, to coach people, to run, and set up and run operations or set up process. Everywhere I've used a lot of this across the board, and I think it's been wonderful. And then my last role was with Cisco. I moved out in Jan 2019. It's been 4 years. And I started Dustypaths. I'd always had this idea of, doing something, to sort of get all of this learning, insights, experience, and take it to organizations. And I see that there is a huge vacuum in organizations today. It's basically a leadership vacuum where people are domain experts. They don't have the ability to sort of lead people very well. And I think that's where I bring in storytelling. It's not just about leadership concepts. It's about using storytelling as an intervention to bring leadership abilities or enable leadership abilities from within. So that's the whole journey.
Fantastic. So your story started by challenging a creator about the advertisement, and then kind of recreating something, and it worked out really magical. And of course, who did not like to watch or hear or listen to the stories of Disney and the characters, right? Because I remember as a child, stories have shaped me in countless ways, right? And then it sparks your imagination. Kind of you start dreaming about something that you've never seen before. Let's say once upon a time, you say, there lived a king, and there was, the kingdom with everybody fighting with each other, blood everywhere. It could be gory, or it could be something related to beauty, and it's a lot of imagination, right? And then that also triggered the interest of reading and, listening to more and more stories. But I still cherish that part of my life, because once the TV came, it changed the whole perspective. We were, it was so aptly said, it's an idiot box, because the imagination stops. Once you start seeing, imagination stops, right? But now, considering that, I really admire the way that you picked up the storytelling, or the concept, the idea of telling, and also relating that to the modern day challenges faced by organizations. Now, I'm going to kind of pass this there, and we've got runners joining into this conversation. Okay, so this community is all about running and endurance running. But the most fascinating thing that connects everybody to this sport. I am connected with this endurance sport because every time I wear my shoes and go out, I can create a story. I can actually come up with a story. I can experience something, and we all love to listen to what others are doing. Okay, so now you said you run an organization called Dustypaths. What is Dustypaths, and why Dustypaths?
Oh, okay. All right. So there are three aspects that come together here. So one it starts from my love for the outdoors, especially the mountains. And
you're a runner, you're a barefoot runner, so that people know here that you're not talking to some alien, right? So came from storyteller. You're a runner. Let's talk about that. Come on.
Yes, I'm getting there. I'm getting there. So that love for outdoors and the mountains has always been playing, all through. So, and especially after I went to the Himalayas and did a Himalayan trek the first time, got up that mountain pass and crossed it. I think that was where you don't have well-laid roads, and certain places there are paths which are not defined, so you need to find paths. And your adventure in life is basically that, and I look at that as very similar to how our mental paths, we operate using patterns basically. So how do you break patterns? And I started experimenting a lot with my runs. My shift from running with shoes to barefoot running also was that, breaking a pattern. How do I allow myself to break that pattern and find a new path? Find a different experience. What do I do with it? And I think that is most important for us to stay, fresh, stay young, and sort of get, this mind to generate a lot more ideas. So very, very important for us to sort of look at organizations also, where leaders today, there's so much ambiguity, so much change. They have to lead on dusty paths. There is no set path. There is no paved road. They have to do the same thing. And I think when you look at runs, especially, running especially, you'd not like to run the same route every day, for the whole year. You'd want to go somewhere else and run. You want to find a new path, find a new road, find a new trail, find a new event to go and run, have a different experience. I think that's where Dustypaths comes into the picture there. One is the mountains, definitely. There's running, definitely. And there is leadership, which comes in there. There's three things which I sort of bring together.
Beautiful. So break the pattern, right? Break the pattern. it's an exploratory journey, right? So when somebody says ultra running, or even running for that matter, and I'm sure it gives an opportunity for us to identify and re-identify certain aspects of ourselves. It is more like a self-discovery, right? So we are kind of finding a path, creating a pattern, as you said, and then learning something new every single time, and then breaking the pattern. That's what, I always talk about, doing the uncomfortable thing, right? So you basically do the uncomfortable thing. Do uncomfortable, be comfortable, because generally if somebody says I'm running a marathon, I know that okay, let's not say everybody. So the day I realized that I'm running a marathon, people thought that I'm an idiot. And then the day I started running an ultra marathon, I said, okay, he's a super idiot, right? So it's and I'm sure all the runners here can relate to that, right? So now that journey, that exploration, the opportunity to break a pattern, rediscover something, relive these little childhood moments, because we always say that we missed a lot of chapter in our life. In our conversation, we always talked about that. So basically, feeling that breaking the pattern is going to make you younger, fitter, happier. I think the way we tell stories to ourselves, to have this idea instilled in our mind to break the pattern and do something new is really remarkable. Okay, and I'm glad to know that you have found that, use that concept to come and explore something new. Now, what is that striking memory of, let's say, when you start running, or what is the toughest run that you've done, and then is there anything that you can give as a tip for the runners here to talk to them? Because self-talk is something that is a beautiful technique. Even if you really look at the psychology of running, and then self-talk and self-motivation, the motivational techniques, even if you really look at the ACE trans-theoretical model, so they all talk about talking to ourselves, making. So what is your advice, or what is your experience? If you could share that with all the runners who are going to be watching this or already tuned into this conversation. So what is that story that you tell to yourself, and what is the best story that everybody can tell to themselves while running?
Yeah. So okay, we'll start with self-talk. Okay, so the way I look at self-talk is just probably the script or some parts of the story. There are dialogues from the story. The story is running in the head. There's a larger story which is running in the head. So I look at stories at two levels there. One is a running story. It's about my run. It's about my event. It's about getting up in the morning and say, okay, or going to bed in the night and say, okay, next morning I have this run. I think I'm doing a long run this weekend. I'm doing my intervals. I'm doing hill repeats, or I'm doing a recovery run. So you have something set in your mind. There's a short story out there. And there's that self-talk, which is part of that. So self-talk is not the story, full story. The full story is running inside. With most of the times we are not even aware. We're not even cognizant of that, or we don't pay much attention to it. Now, there is also above that is a life story. We have our life, entire life, which we are operating in a particular manner. We're running it in a particular manner. We have certain goals, certain aspirations, certain ideas about how I should be, how I am today, where I should be, what I should do. All of this has a huge influence. That story, master story, has a huge influence on my running performance or my running story. It influences that. And a lot of these stories are coming from our, how we look at ourselves in terms of identity and what are the kind of beliefs that we have. So our stories are originating from our belief system, pretty deep inside. When you look at it, and you go start, digging into it or even reflecting on it, it requires a bit of awareness, and we'll be able to sort of elicit a lot of those stories. But in a general manner, when you're going and running, basically, when you're trying to sort of go and get a story for your run, the most important thing is to sort of understand why you're running there. Then the story the objective of that can vary. The first full marathon that I ran, my goal was I need to cross the finish line within the cutoff time. So my story started off when I decided to sign up, or before I decided to sign up. Will I be able to do it or not? How do I see myself? So there is a story running right from there. It is not just a self-talk there, So there's something that I'm trying to achieve or to prove to myself finally I want to have a challenge which I'm going to overcome. It reinforces something for myself. So there is a story running there. That small incident or small story within that larger story is a very important part of my life now. So for me, that was the story running there. My second one, when I signed up for my second full marathon, the story was about, hey, can I do this again? Maybe I had good luck, I did it, but what if I'm not able to finish it? Will I be able to repeat it? So that was playing in my mind at that point in time. So the story was all about making sure you assure yourself, you build this belief, you strengthen your belief. And when I look at how, all the way to, the Ladakh marathon that I did, the 42K that I did at Ladakh, there I said, oh, let me just enjoy this run. Let me just go out and enjoy this run. And the last 4 kilometers as we climb up into Leh and the sun is hitting you, I know I need a lot more salts. I'm not able to breathe. It's 11,050 feet altitude out there. I'm not used to that, though I acclimatized a bit and everything. But trying to run there, my most important thing was I want to breathe. I need more oxygen. The story changed out there. Initially, it was like, let me just enjoy the route. And then finally, it was like, let me just breathe well. Let me get more oxygen into my system and live so that I can cross the finish line. I don't want to get, lifted to the finish line. I want to cross the finish line on my feet. So the story can be different for these different, where we are in the journey is what defines that story. The important thing to ask ourselves, one question to ask ourselves is, why am I running this? What is the purpose of this run? I think if we can outline that, it'll create a nice story for ourselves in terms of looking back at the timeline of where we started, why I'm running this, and what am I doing? How do I want that story to sort of move ahead? Where does it end, this particular episode? So I can look at it as a story and that whole run journey itself, which culminates at the finish line or even a little after that, is basically the story.
No, it's very profound. You're basically giving a lot of new ideas to a thinking process. Right? So when you have running, what you said, you have to repeat. That thinking about the run, which is going to be next day, is only part of the story. And then the run itself, during the run or even before the run, you're thinking about the bigger objective. You're painting a bigger picture of, okay, why am I even doing this? What does this mean to me personally, to my life? How is it going to affect me? By participating or even experiencing this or even finishing this? How's it going to affect me personally? Right? I think that's bigger than the marathon goal. But of course, then you kind of bring your focus to, okay, race day. So what is that I need to do? I need to finish the race. There's some cutoff. I need to hydrate. I need to have salts. I need to breathe. Right. So all those things are going to be occupying in your mind. But I think if you can make that larger goal stick at the beginning, but I think there's a lot of smaller variations that we all go through as runners. It doesn't matter whether it's 15 kilometer Ooty Ultra or you're doing a 90 kilometers. It doesn't matter. Everybody goes through this little emotional ups and downs. If you can connect at every single point of time, you are able to remember that you're doing this because you have a larger goal in life. And then I think it's really amazing how your idea of breaking it down to multiple pieces, so it kind of makes the whole experience very, very enjoyable. Okay, so now you are aware of what Ooty Ultra is. You've not run the Ooty Ultra, so you can't really say what kind of stories you're going to tell to yourself on that day. What is your perspective of what Ooty Ultra is? Because we've been talking about Ooty Ultra for quite some time now. So what is your perspective, or what is Dustypaths' understanding of what Ooty Ultra is?
Okay. Yeah, so there's a lot of inputs or points that I pick up from and paint a picture in my mind of from our conversations, of course, and from what I've seen on social media and what I've seen on the website and what I've heard around. So a lot of those elements are there, but the way I'm going to go there and experience will probably, I'll look at it from a fresh pair of eyes is what I feel. So I usually hold off from, even saying, yeah, this event is going to be like this. So, I'm not defining that is going to limit my experience itself and my perspective of that, allowing myself to see it from various perspectives. But what I look at when I think of Ooty Ultra is the one thing that I think about is, yeah, it is a it is a challenging event. It's a challenging race, is one. And there are some extremely wonderful runners coming from across the country to run this. The important part is this is happening in the mountains. So there is that mountain element, which for me, it is like, yeah, I've been to Ooty in the past. That was way back in the 90s. I have visited Ooty, and then I have passed through Ooty. I have not stopped at Ooty anytime, So it has just passed through Ooty while coming from the other side, from Kotagiri, let us say, or some other place. So we just passed through Ooty and maybe stop for a coffee or things like that, but never really spent time in Ooty as such. So this is going to be going back to Ooty and really, looking at it. So that is one thing that I have in mind in terms of Ooty Ultra. Okay, there is going to be the outdoors and the mountains, and the weather is going to be different and those things. So those are wonderful things that I'm looking at. The other part that I'm looking at is it is a challenging run for runners specifically. So I'm looking forward to, my idea is, there are going to be a lot of stories of resilience out there. A lot of stories of people coming there to say, hey, let me crack this one. Let me take a shot at this one. Or there are probably stories of people who have really been doing these endurance runs, long runs, ultra marathons. So who are coming there and saying, okay, I'm preparing for something more. Now this is a nice training ground for me. So that's another idea that I have. What struck me really, was the word Ultramalaivasi. I think that is a beautiful word out there. It sort of captures a lot of things, and especially getting to know that the local community is engaged out there. The people in that place are engaged, and they're tuned into this particular event. They are aware that this event is happening, and this event is also sort of going to create a lot of buzz for them. Not just in terms of having a running event in that place, but I think there is a lot of giving back that is happening to them. It's in many senses it's enabling the local ecosystem out there, which I feel is the idea that I have, and I think that's a wholesome thing to do when it comes to having a running event like this. And Ooty Ultra, I think that Ultramalaivasi is something you aspire to be something like it's a way of living basically, and through the run it's a way of living, aspiring for that.
Oh, that's beautiful. I never thought that I would get a different perspective like this, because as a creator, I always have my story tangled into these definitions, and it's always nice to get different perspectives. I think let's say if storytelling is what each one of us are doing on that particular day of the race. We've got about 1,000+ runners who have run already the Ooty Ultra, and everybody has written their own stories, right? It's already carved in the stones. For them, it's deeply etched into them, because that's the experience. A lot of returning runners coming. There are also new runners who are coming there to become this Ultramalaivasi, right? So the Ultramalaivasi is all about an identity, an ideal character, who loves the nature, who likes to create a script for himself, herself. And also, if you really say that this story that we are all scripting for individually is going to become a bigger story script for the local community, right? Because the giving back aspect has just started. I won't say that it is huge right now, but we've already started with a very, very small manner. And then this year, it's going to be even more with Rotary Uttarakhand coming, with the Citizen Forum of Nilgiris getting into that, this Kendure village. I've already started talking to the Ilangargar Sangam, these are the youth who are basically gone back. That's a fascinating thing. If you really, as a storyteller, I want you to go and experience them. These guys, these are all IT and employees of different organizations. They came out of Nilgiris. They went to different parts of the country. But then COVID came, and then everybody came back to the village, their own place. And then they were working, they were trying to figure out things. But it's fascinating to know that these folks, they're youngsters, they want to rewrite the story of the village. Okay, so they are very keen on creating something better. So they've done a lot of projects. So it's endless amount. I'm not going to, kind of talk about that, because we will have an opportunity to talk about that in another conversation. if I really see, when I went to Kendarai, when I had an opportunity to talk to Suresh Babu, one of our, let's say fellow volunteer and also core member in OOTYULTRA. So he introduced me to that community. It's so fascinating to see what these guys are scripting for themselves. And then if, let's say, all the runners from all across India and then a few foreign runners, so we all go to a place which is known for its mesmerizing, beautiful mountains. We are scripting our own stories. At the same time, we're also kind of elevating the standards of the people there in a very, very minuscule format. I think that opportunity is like something I'm looking really forward to doing that. Okay, now, so we've seen that the runners like stories, they're creating scripts. Now, what are you looking forward into witnessing in OOTYULTRA? So you're going to be witnessing OOTYULTRA for the first time. So can you plan for something ahead of time? Okay, in the concept of storytelling, how are you going to approach, and how do you want the runners to approach? Because you've already given some tips on, okay, so you're creating your own stories, so this is how you need to plan, but what are you going to do when it comes to OOTYULTRA?
Okay, I am looking forward to being on the ground there and on the course, at the start line, behind the scenes, at various places, so stories are happening, unfolding everywhere. And and most times, these kind of stories cannot be scripted, in the sense you cannot foresee and say, yes, this is how it's going to unfold. So it is important, my most, I would say I'm going to be armed with my curiosity and my ability to listen and my ability to tune in and spot those stories. So that's something that I do, whether I'm in a training program, whether I'm on, doing some street photography or clicking an event. I also love clicking pictures of people. So people photography is something that I love. So I am able to tune into the emotions happening on the other side. So I think that is part of the storytelling thing that comes in, that I've been doing for years now. So I think I'll be there with that. I'll be curious. I'll be open to the kind of adventures that are going to unfold there, and the stories that I can gather. So that is what I would say at this point, because I don't know. Beyond whatever I've heard and the kind of picture that I have painted, the stories that I'm telling myself, I'm trying to have some kind of a construct. Beyond that, I go there, runners, and I've been part of running events, but this is a different place, and every running event is going to be different. So I'm looking forward to that new set of stories and experiences.
Yeah, I think that's wonderfully said. So it's not, the story always comes with the emotional side of things, right? Otherwise, you're only scripting something that becomes just a plan. It's like a plan. I'm going to go there. I'm going to land there at this particular time. I'm going to go to the expo. I'm going to wake up at this time. I'm going to eat this. That's plan and checklist, right? Yes. But the story is, okay, what kind of people you're going to connect there? What is that you're going to experience? That's the emotional side that we are feeding into whenever we go to travel to a different place. Right? It's not a plan. It's beyond a plan. You've given me a completely different perspective. I'm going to approach marathon running, even my own events, because that's a great opportunity for all of us to script our own stories. Because I also enjoy writing about it. I think, can you also talk about how does this writing thing can help somebody to relive the experiences that we all go through? What is your take on writing? Because I think we're also losing that little, fast life of 30 seconds videos and 10 seconds videos and reels. And I'm not against them. They also tell some stories, but there is this lost and fearfully lost identity of people used to be writers. Now we used to have journaling and writing. Yeah. And blogging, and those things have gone now. I've got Yuvraj, I think he's already part of this. I've seen him writing about every single run of his long run, short runs. You write stories about that. I haven't seen a lot of runners writing blogs these days. Okay, even I have lost touch with blogs. And so what is your take on writing so that you can relive in the future?
Yes. Yeah. I think one important thing, the objective of writing needs to be clear. what is my objective? You don't have to probably write a blog, a book, an article, or a longish, story. I think even capturing that, those moments, those experiences with phrases, words in my own manner can actually make a difference for me. So one is, am I doing it for myself first? And then if I want to share it with the world, of course, that is when you start looking at how do I present this in a better manner. But for the stories for myself, is there a way to sort of capture those stories for myself? So one of the things that we do with organizations, especially for leaders, because leaders, when they, a critical part of leaders in organizations, they need to communicate, they need to inspire, they need to impact people through their communication. Now, one of the things, any amount of slides and any amount of data, any amount of facts are not going to help. You look at organizations, you go in there, they'll have vision statement and mission statement and values, everything displayed. How many of them follow it? How many of them understand? So it's a leader's role or a job to make sure people live it at the workplace. And for that, to enable that, it requires stories. So stories are required there. So one of the things that we help leaders do is to build their story bank. How do you build the story bank for yourself? So you have, and that is from their personal experience. It is not stories, fairy tales, or it's not somebody else's stories, but it is their own experiences, life experiences that they can dig into and capture some excerpts from it. So they're able to sort of put that to use in various situations. So, and it could be with customer situations, it could be with their team members, it could be in a personal situation. And when it comes to runners, I feel a lot of it is very important. We click pictures at with the medal, and what is a way to sort of capture that moment, that experience? I think even a few words really make a big difference out there. The picture as well as with the words. I think those are two things that can really capture those moments and the emotions at that point.
So what you're saying is, in a nutshell, picture cannot speak 1,000 words.
It does actually.
Pictures
are very powerful.
No, I said probably 900 words, and those 100 words you have to write.
Yeah. You probably make it 1,050. You write 50 words. Okay. The 1,000 words are spoken by the image. Yeah, I'm a photographer, so I'm also a photographer. So I will definitely.
Pictures. Anyway, let me kind of clarify my stance. We generally say the saying that picture speaks 1,000 words. But maybe that's the reason why we all click and then we don't write, right? So I'm saying pictures speak only 950 words. So make sure that those 50 words are going to basically help you relive that moment. Okay. So we are at the kind of end of this conversation. I know the storytelling can go on, and then we can also touch upon areas where it's a new area of identifying ourselves. Now, how can anybody reach out to you, Vinod? I know Dustypaths is the Instagram handle. So what is the typical engagement like? So let's say if somebody wants to connect with you. There are two questions. One is, it's pretty easy for, let's say, companies to connect with you. Do you also engage at a personal level? Like, let's say an ultra marathon runner. So they want to understand the concept of storytelling and also how it enhances their lifestyle. So do you also engage with them on a one-on-one basis, or is it only companies who can engage with Dustypaths?
Yes. Yeah. We work with companies, organizations. We work with individual leaders also. There are instances where there's a founder of an organization who is making an investor pitch, wants to incorporate storytelling or refine the pitch to make sure that they have storytelling incorporated into it, or rework on their slide deck. So we've worked on specific objectives like that. We also looked at, and one of the things that I've always worked, especially for the last 2 decades, is in terms of people performance, and specifically in work. And I have also sort of enabled performance for people outside of the in their interests, basically. So when it comes to performance, it is, end of the day, it's a mind and body connection when you look at it. So when it comes to marathon or ultra marathon training or running training, you're training your body. You're also training your mind, but you're focused on your body. What's my form? What am I doing to strengthen myself, my glutes and my hamstrings and my upper body? How am I doing it? Am I stretching well? So you're focusing a lot on the physical part of it. The bigger, I would say a large part of it is also contributed from the mental abilities that we have. So the mind part of it is what I have always worked, especially over the last 2 decades, within organizations, individuals, leaders, how to sort of enhance performance, how to sort of, build that performance. And the same thing, it's the same mind, while I go to work or I'm running or I'm writing or I'm, sitting with friends and family, whatever I'm doing, it's the same mind end of the day. So how do I shape my thought process? How do I bring in storytelling to sort of enhance my performance? Yeah. So we work with individuals, we work with, organizations, teams, variety of people. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you so much, Vinod. It was quite an insightful conversation, so new ideas in terms of how we approach our goals and our own life, right? Because even though we are every single day, it's like part of a story, and then the bigger story when we know. So that's what the goals and bigger. Every time we hear people saying, "Oh, okay, you need to have a larger than life goal and then objectives." But I think if we can relate that to a nice narratable story, which can be passed on to generations after generations, because when we as a child, I love the stories told by my parents, and at the same time, my children were looking upon us, right? So when so can you tell a story? What happened during my childhood? What happened this? But can these stories be told by our children? I'm sure each one of us have that. Each one of us has that opportunity to create a story for ourselves, which can be a nice fable, which can be an inspiring one, which can be something that can, like a runner, we always talk about inspiration, resilience, and somebody is very courageous, somebody is very bold, somebody is, making an attempt to climb a mountain, not just running, right, in the context of sports. And every time we hear a story of somebody making a living for themselves, we know within the academy, we've supported athletes like Ramba. He has created a story for himself. If you see, he's one of the finest athletes that India is now seeing, and is breaking his own records. 99% of his story is like amazing, that we have not even heard that side of things, right? So now we've got another athlete like Ultramalaivasi, who's coming from a very, very village background, trying to make a mark, and then fascinating to see that within 1 year of running, he's already in the elite categories. He just completed in the top 10 position the New Delhi Marathon. I'm sure each one of us have the potential to create a story, etch a story, at the same time also pass it on to the next generation. Thank you so much, Vinod, and all runners out there. I'm sure you have some new ideas, so go and create the stories. Okay, so let's witness a lot of stories unfolding, a lot of drama also will unfold, especially in the second half of the race in OOTYULTRA. So for me, I have this unique position of being a runner, being a let's say a coach, and also a race director, also somebody who created this. To witness those stories, right? It's so fascinating to see how everybody comes and enjoys the most amazing part of the Nilgiris and the nature can offer. Okay, thank you very much, and time to say goodbye, and wish you good luck. Dustypaths seem to be a very exciting concept. I've never heard about this, and I spent 25 years in the corporate world. Last 7 years, I've never seen anybody so emotionally attached with storytelling and also helping organizations, helping people like me, like the individuals, rediscover something or discover something new, right? So kudos, and thank you. Thank you very much.
Very much. Thank you for having me on the session. And I'd like to say, all runners have actually spent time in preparing for OOTYULTRA, and the last 3.5, 4 weeks now. So you're going to taper off your training basically. And it's important to sort of give a bit of time to understand what story is running here and what is the kind of story you want to sort of prepare for as you get into OOTYULTRA. Yeah.
Beautiful. So start creating that story in the mind now. Yeah. Think about the larger story.